Loren. Thanks for joining our show today.
Absolutely. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Guys, welcome to Girl Fight Talk. I'm your host, Kalah Haley, and today we have a very special guest. Loren Landow of Landow Performance is here joining us on a call. Thank you so much for your time, Loren.
Absolutely.
Wanted to just quickly, right off the bat, how was your Memorial Day weekend?
Oh, it was good. It wasn't much of I didn't really take it down too much. I actually worked and have some athletes down at the Olympic Training Center, so I was down there training some members of the U.S. bobsled team.
Okay.
So it worked a little bit. I tend to always find a way to work on almost any day.
Oh, wow. Gosh. Work. That's awesome. I mean, and so you're like burning calories as the rest of us are putting them on.
That's right.
The rest
you
of
guys are having a lot more fun than me, probably.
Hey, well, but you know what, though? At the end of the day, you're going to have that six-pack. I'm going to be like, okay, I need to get, like, into Loren's gym again and get right. Need your help. But, yeah, you guys, if you're not familiar with Loren Landow, he is the premier pro athlete trainer in Colorado, probably throughout the whole Rocky Mountain region. Trains athletes from all different levels of from pro athletes to, fitness, fanatics and enthusiasts to the weekend warrior. Training athletes from, you've got football athletes, you've got Von Miller. So first of all, I was looking on your website and I was like, oh my goodness, you have an amazing lineup of athletes that you've trained. I mean, again, going from Von Miller to Tim Tebow, you've got Ed McCaffrey, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and then you've got the great Peyton Manning. That's all just football. Who else? Who am I missing?
You know what? We've had so many, great guys coming in here over the years, but currently, like with Derek Wolf's coming in here, and different guys like Shaq Barrett and Todd Davis, and a lot of guys who are on the current roster of the Broncos, makes it really fun to work with those guys and then turn around and watch the season upcoming.
Definitely. And then, I mean, as I was going to say, you had Ed McCaffrey as one of your guys, and you just recently trained his son. Is that right?
Yep, exactly. Christian McCaffrey got him ready for the draft process, which is always a fun process in itself, but he had a very nice result, and it's unfortunately not a Bronco, but I think he's going to do very well with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, boo. I mean, good for you and good for him. Obviously getting in the league, that's important, but I mean, that's amazing. Explain a little bit of that process, because
Sure.
I understand like a little bit of football. I grew up, obviously I'm a Denver Bronco fan. But, this is Girl Fight Talk, so a lot of these women, they understand, athletics and all that stuff, but give us a little bit of that inside scoop on what it's like to train athletes to go and compete and prepare for the Combine.
Sure. So, the Combine is a pretty interesting puzzle. It's like it's like one-day track meet, but the 3 days before that is a lot of mental hurdles and obstacles. At the end of the day, the NFL, big, powerful organization that has 32 teams, and they want to make sure that they're looking to hire their new crop of athletes, but they want to make sure that, they do their due diligence and they, uncover any potential threads or problems that the athlete might have. So they fly in the top 280 prospects to Indianapolis, and they take them through a battery of tests that are everything from psychology-based to medical examinations to the most extensive MRIs and X-rays. The process in itself is an evaluation as well, where it's, as I said, it's 3 days on the mental side, where they keep the kids up, late as can be. They keep them up to about 12 or 1, and then they wake them up at about 4:30 or 5.
Wow.
The kids are on their feet all day. They're eating, but they're not eating at optimal times. They're not necessarily eating optimal fuel. So really what they want to do is kind of fatigue these kids and see what they do. And then on the very, very last day, they say, show us what you got.
Wow.
And they take them out and they do the battery of tests. And some of the tests are purely like they want to collect the data and see, how do you rank amongst your peers at that same position? And, does that equate to what we've been seeing on tape over the past couple of years on you?
Okay.
And then they have other drills that are truly position drills that aren't necessarily timed, but they want to see how well you move in space what kind of athlete you are at your more position-specific niche. Okay. So it's a funny process because I think a lot of people bag on it and they say, oh, that's a horrible way to talent ID, but it's more than talent ID. I mean, they're really looking to see what's your level of commitment to the process, what's your level of professionalism, what's your mental makeup. Right. And then, how do you work with others? How do you compete with others? Do you quit when it gets hard, or do you actually step it up after a bad drill? Do you step it up and get back on the horse? Okay. So it's a fun process. I love it because it's such a narrow time frame, and for you fight listeners, I like it because it's almost the same kind of turnaround as a fight camp that I prepare my fighters for. It's usually about a 6 to 8 week window, and you have an exact end date, just like the fight game. So I love it for that reason.
Wow. Okay, so it's kind of like for, let's say because they're graduating with the rest of their peers, right? It was just graduation season, class of 2017, congratulations. And it's almost like, the kids who want to be lawyers, and so they're like training and preparing and they're studying for the LSAT, and then they have that day where they're like, okay, this is my day to like prove that I'm ready to, even just to begin the journey of becoming a lawyer. Almost like that for NFL athletes. It's crazy. So you got...
And there's a lot of marbles riding on it, and there's a lot of expectations from, girlfriends, wives, parents, etc. So the kids have, everybody looks at it as like, wow, what an amazing opportunity. But there's a it's a cool opportunity, and it's a big stressor though at the same time for these kids.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure you've got lots of moms who are like, yeah, baby, go get that Cadillac we've been talking about for all these years.
You got it.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Oh, my goodness. So, okay, so you've got your NFL athletes. You've also got you've got some Olympians that you just talked about it. You were at the Olympic Training Center. Who were you training down there?
Down at the training center with the USA bobsledders. Just working with those guys, getting them ready for, we're ramping up here to the Winter Games, and I've been hired as a consultant to work on really their power component as they push the sled. That's really the part that I've been asked to help out. They're not asking me to help drive this bobsled. They're just having me help with the horsepower, getting it going. So it's a really cool process as well. The guys are former track athletes or football players, and they're very coachable, and you always see these Olympic athletes who really just narrow in their focus as that Olympic year starts to turn the corner, and it's really fun to see because they're going to be going out there representing themselves but our country, right. And it's fun to be part of that process. And I've been fortunate to have some athletes in the games before, and it's just it's unlike anything else where you're sitting there, the whole world is watching these games, and it's a goosebump moment for sure watching the athletes compete on that stage.
That's crazy. Yeah, I was looking at your list again, and you've got guys like Jeremy Bloom, who actually Josh introduced me to. My producer told me a little bit about.
Yeah, Jeremy, he was a heck of an athlete. And, ironically about him, he was getting ready for the Winter Games. The same time he was getting ready for the NFL Combine. Wow. It was absolutely crazy. So to see some of these high performers and the things they're able to do and turn around, and we also have some Olympians getting ready for the games. We have a nice player in the women's U.S. hockey team, Kendall Coyne. Okay. And she's they're making that run right now, getting ready for the Olympic Games, and she was just announced as part of the team going into the Olympics. So It'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun in the preparation process.
That's so cool. Man, okay, we're not even done because we literally just talked about NFL athletes. We just talked about some Olympians. You've also
we gotta get this fight game stuff.
Yeah, I know. Here, I'm saving the best for last. So, and then you've got some baseball players. Okay, honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not huge into baseball, but the only person I recognized was Troy Tulowitzki. So I was like, I know that's a big deal. deal.
Yeah, he was a fun one to work with, and he's up in Toronto now. But just a great quality human being, and just so talented. And that's the thing I love about being diversified in all the different sports I work with, is all the great people I get to meet. But all the opportunities I have to learn a little bit more about their sport and about what makes these athletes tick. Because at the end of the day, whether they're a baseball player, football player, swimmer, hockey player, fighter, they all deal with the same issues. I mean, they all deal with the performance anxiety. They all deal with the am I good enough scenario. And at some point in time, all these athletes are going to end up injured. And so it's really interesting to me to watch the psychology of all these athletes that are very, very similar when you really boil it down.
Yeah. No, totally. And then I think, some of the maybe the newer athletes to your roster might be the MMA fighters. And, of course, you've got, like, the best of the best that you're training. You've trained Brendan Shaw, which, everyone's familiar with Brendan's show, Fighter and the Kid, and then you've had Kat Zingano, which so bummed she moved away from Colorado, but you got the privilege of training with her. And then also, of course, former bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw, which he's proudly all over your website, which I was like, yes, Dillashaw is all over.
We saw a cool picture, and I said, hey, TJ, can we put that on the side? He said, of course, Coach. So we went with that. But, you're right. The probably the newest athletes to my roster are probably the fighters, but ironically enough, I was doing the math the other day, and I looked back at it, and I think I started with the fight game about 8 or 9 years ago now. So even though they're new to my roster, it's flown by so quickly. And Brendan was my very first fighter I worked with, and he was one of my football players before he was a fighter. He made the transition into the fight game and asked me if I'd be his S&C, and I said, of course. And I said, but I don't know a damn thing about the sport. So I started watching the fights, and, from there I started trying to piece together in my mind what I thought would be, ideal or optimal preparation for their performance. And honestly, I couldn't have been further from the truth. I couldn't have been more wrong what my initial assessment was. And it's taken me, a number of years to really pull back and reevaluate what I was doing and say, gosh, we had some success early on, but it was by dumb luck. And now I've changed my strategies up quite a bit from how I used to look at the fight game. But, I've been fortunate in those times. I still work with Kat via email and phone call, and I'm fortunate to work with Donald Cerrone when he comes in town. But Neil Magny's been a long-term athlete of ours as well, and we're just fortunate with the stable of athletes we have in Colorado.
Definitely. Okay, so no pressure, but out of all of the athletes, who's your favorite?
Okay, so we're talking about favorite, like I want to go have coffee with, or I enjoy training them.
Both. Give us your favorite, hanging out with athlete, and then your favorite, like this is gonna be this is a beast, once in a lifetime kind of athlete.
Well, you know what? Like, if I'm talking hanging out athlete and I'm listening to the stories that this athlete tells, it's got to be Brandon Thatch.
Okay.
I mean, Brandon Thatch has the best stories ever, and he's probably the best storyteller. Yeah. Oh, and he's probably the best storyteller ever.
Wow.
And I'll say, it's hard to pick one who's the best to train. They're all cut from a very similar cloth in the fact that they'll do whatever you put in front of them.
Right.
I will say this: the thing I love about TJ Dillashaw is I love TJ's ability to focus. Some of the fighters, they're obviously hard workers, but sometimes they can get distracted by a shiny object in the room or something. So don't tell them I said that; they might beat me up. But
I'll just send this to everyone.
Dillashaw, I think that there's just been a nice influx when he came into our team. I think everybody kind of tightened things up a little bit. And I'd say Neil Magny, same thing. These guys, they just come in with a different element of focus, and Drew Dober the same. They come in, they're focused, they're ready to work, and they're all fun in their own way, I guess I should say.
Okay.
But I think TJ brings an element of physical and mental acuity that's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean that's what we keep hearing. I mean, you listen to any interview, you listen to anything that anyone has to say about TJ, and they always compliment him. He is known. His reputation precedes him that he is a hard-working athlete. And I personally haven't seen it yet myself, but I'm looking forward to the day that I get to just see him do work.
And he's coachable. That's the biggest thing. When you look into these fighters, like I think a lot of them are maybe coachable in their skill set, but when they come to S&C, they look at it as time to be rambunctious and get after it. To me, this is a skill set that they have to learn here. And, I think that, TJ always does a good job of being coachable. And if I'm asking him to make a change or a transition or a technical change, his answer is always, yes, coach. Yes, coach. I mean, he's just always, he's always ready to be coached.
That's great. That martial arts background, you got to love that part of it. And I did get to train at your guys' facility. I think it was with Aaron.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what your guys' philosophy is, but he ran me through, okay, you know, Mondays are tough, Wednesdays are tough, Fridays are kind of more of a recovery day. And I came in on a recovery day when I really needed it. And, I thought, you know, I was preparing myself. My stomach was in knots because I'm used to conditioning from, like, high school where it's like punishment almost. And I left refreshed. My hips were, like, open. I was just like, what is this?
For our fighters spar on Friday night. So we make sure that Friday workout is more of an active recovery session where you're moving the whole time, but you know it's at low intensity, and it actually serves as good active recovery. And by the time you leave, you forgot how crappy you felt when you walked in the door. And that's purposeful. We want to make sure that our guys, one, that sparring isn't the first practice they do for the day, because usually that first practice it takes a little bit to get the rust out. But we look at the practice on our Fridays is it's like the opener. You know, if you're doing an opener as a competitor, you know, you're not just going to go the night of the fight or the night of the BJJ comp and say, okay, here we go. You know, hopefully, you know, about 5 hours beforehand, you've warmed up and you've gone through some technical rounds and you've just brushed up a little bit. Particularly if you've had a weight cut. If you've had a weight cut, you don't want the first time you've revved the engine to be the night of the fight. You know, you want to make sure that you know how things are feeling, you know, 5+ hours beforehand.
Right.
So to me, that workout that we do on Fridays is kind of like a gauge, but we also set it out and schedule purposeful, so that way it does mimic a little bit more of an opener session leading into fight night.
That makes sense. Okay, you kind of mentioned it. You said that, you know, you did some math and looked back. It's been about 8 years since you started training fighters, Brendan Schaub being the first one. And it's funny because I was looking through this and I'm a diehard MMA fan, and I've been, you know, anything, I remember in high school and middle school, anything on YouTube that had anything to do with MMA, I had watched it probably 4 times. So I remember even from like the old, I don't know, countdown series or whatever they were leading up to like fights. I remember you and I think is it Christian Chamberlain up in Canada?
Oh, John Chamberg.
John Chamberg, yes.
John Chamberg.
Yes, you two were like the main kind of like high profile S&C coaches in MMA. And I don't know if you remember, but it was pretty cool to see that was kind of, by you guys being in the scene for MMA, it helped to really, in my opinion, legitimize the sport, because you see the rest of your roster and then you see TJ and you see the rest of these athletes on your roster as well, and you're like, well, wow, that really, okay, MMA definitely is on the same level as these other sports. I thought it was really cool.
You know, it's funny enough, is John was actually a really big influence to me when I first got involved, because when I got involved with Brendan, John was already sending workouts to all the guys at Grudge Training Center. Okay. So back in the day, the guys all worked out at Grudge, and Grudge was kind of like a sister gym between Jackson Winklejohn and also TriStar.
Yeah, I remember.
So John was really embedded with Jackson and also TriStar. And so John was sending workouts to these guys. And I think the guys, you know, needed somebody besides a remote coach. That, you know, Brendan realized that they needed, you know, somebody more local who could watch technique and could really truly be on top of things, where John was just pretty busy up there. So, you know, I was able to reach out to John, and, you know, John was really gracious in how I got involved. And, you know, I'm sure it was hard for John because these were his guys, and now I'm jumping in and taking over a little bit.
Sure.
But John was always really gracious, and he and I have a pretty darn good professional relationship now, where we touch base with each other, see how each other's doing, ask each other about different pieces of equipment and ideas and philosophies. So, you know, I agree. He was the first one that I was really introduced to on the fight game. That was you know, doing it at a very, very high level. I mean, heck, you know, he had, you know, GSP for how many years, and Rory, and you know, so many good fighters up in Canada.
David Yeah, definitely, tons of fighters. I remember I was gonna ask. Okay, so you guys started this, you know, training all these years ago, everything like that. You know, so the UFC just recently opened their new performance athlete training facility in Las Vegas. You know, I haven't visited yet. I know that the athletes just got to go there for the first time for their retreat that they just had. What do you see as being the, do you see this? What are your thoughts about this new facility? You even mentioned how it took you years as a trainer to even really come to a place where you even understood like what the athletes needed.
Right.
What are your thoughts on the facility? What do you think that it needs to do to be a successful place for these athletes to come and train at?
Well, I think you bring up a very good point, and that's a great question. I'll say this, when the UFC was really starting to look at this process, I had a lot of conversations with Forrest Griffin, and Forrest and I talked pretty extensively about the different philosophy and different ideas, and Forrest, we both were presenting at the National Strength and Conditioning Association. We both presented at the Combat Clinic.
Okay.
And Forrest kind of put out this idea that here's what the UFC wants to do. We want to build this high-performance facility. And it wasn't unlike Muscle Farm. They wanted to have all the regeneration, the recovery, all the different research opportunities. And so Forrest actually highlighted, I was highlighted on the Countdown show, I think, when TJ fought Barao the second time. They came in and filmed us training, and in Forrest's presentation, he showed my clip of training TJ in Muscle Farm. He goes, "This is the way that MMA fighters need to be trained now."
Wow.
He goes, "The days of the pride days of just beating guys up and just coming up with anything that looks intense and hard." He goes, "This is how it's got to be done. It's got to be more scientifically based."
Yep.
And so at that time, they were really, they were more than scratching the surface of what they wanted to do. They had a pretty good pulse on it, but I sat through a few different conference calls with Forrest over that time as well, where I just said, here's my focal point. And, Forrest said, hey, if you weren't in Colorado and had your own thing going, we'd be coming after you. And I said, well, if there's any way, shape, or form I can help, let me know. Well, long story short, they've hired two really good guys. They hired Duncan French, who's a practitioner out of the UK, who spent the last year or two with Notre Dame as the high-performance director. And then they also hired Bo Sandoval, who is a great strength coach from Michigan. So they've got really good guys in the facility who understand the science of training. Now, here's the tricky part. The tricky part comes down to this, is, everybody says we need to do this and we need to do that to make fight preparation better. But you're always stuck with a couple things. You're always stuck with, the fight game is what it is. It's not a safe game. There's no sport that is safe out there, but the fight game takes it up a notch. So to truly train smart is really hard to do in this game. Now, you can modify your training, but here becomes the issue. The issue is this. You can talk about head trauma and how we should periodize training and everything like that, so we manage the amount of contacts to the head, etc. But at the end of the day, you can say off season or in season or in camp, out of camp. But you and I both know if Neil Magny is in a fight camp, you know damn well that Brandon Thatch, Boyan, all the other 170s on our fight team are going to spar with him.
Yep.
They're going to spar with him because they're teammates. So you can't sit there and say, we need to periodize sparring, because where are you going to get your sparring partners?
Right.
So, maybe there's some elements of sparring that are changed, but I think that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to come up with better, safer protocols of how to train these guys in camp, out of camp. But until you can solve that problem, that math problem of, okay, how are we going to give these guys substantial enough training partners in camp that doesn't hurt the other guys of taking too much damage out of camp? Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you explain periodizing the sparring just for the listener?
Sure. So, clearly in sparring, there's different elements, and, I'm not a striking coach, and I'm sure as heck not the technical or tactical coach. But at the end of the day, anytime you're inflicting stress onto the body, you need to manipulate your variables a little bit, and you need to manipulate those variables between volume and intensity and technical. So I think you have to find your strategic days that you say, okay, today's going to be a big glove sparring day. And guess what? Everybody's going to have to wear headgear, even if you don't like headgear. We're trying to minimize the impact of the punches. Well, the problem is most guys get on the big gloves and they start swinging for the fences because they know they can hit their opponent harder.
Right.
Well, that doesn't necessarily help the cause of what we're looking for with the head.
Right.
And then you can look at saying, okay, well, then we'll do small glove sparring and, make it more grappling based and transitional based. Whatever you end up doing, you've got to make sure that you're taking into account how much contact they're truly getting, to the head.
Mm-hmm.
So periodizing means how we manipulate our variables of volume and intensity and technical. And clearly as the fight draws near, your sparring is going to become more intense and more intense, and you're going to have high technical components. Well, if that sparring is getting more intense as I get closer to my fight, my training partners, they better meet me at the same level of intensity, even if they're out of camp, because they don't want to get hurt in sparring. So
right.
it's a slippery slope, and I don't know what the answer is, and I'm sure there's people out there that are smarter than me that can figure it out. But that, to me, is the number one problem you have to solve.
Definitely.
Now, and with that being said, I think that's what the UFC is trying to do with the institution they put together. Again, they put great minds together, and they've got a guy like Forrest who lived the fight game and who is now kind of like a liaison to the UFC and to the fighters to say, hey, here's this great resource we're providing for testing, metabolic testing, biomechanical testing, all the different testing these athletes will need. So I think what they're trying to do is do everything right on the front end to help minimize the damage on the back end.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think that, ultimately, there are a lot of different opinions about the facility, and, everybody's got their own thoughts. But I think ultimately whenever you have, you invest in the foundation and in the infrastructure of anything that you're doing, the sport, the business, whatever the case is, that's always a good thing. So,
right.
Whether it's going to take them a couple of years to get it right, that's what happens with anything. It's going to take some...
And I always felt that MMA was a sport that was never ready to turn the high-level professional. It wasn't ready. And what I meant by that was a lot of times the athletes themselves are not the most professional, in how they carry themselves, and that's just the truth of it. And I can say that for any sport, but it's almost like, the cart was put before the horse, and now, trying to back engineer and say, okay, how can we provide more of an infrastructure to the fighters now? So,
tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to with your facility. I mean, you've got an amazing, roster of athletes that you're training. What are you guys looking forward to? What are you guys looking forward to in the next year or a couple of years?
Again, not to sound too cliche, but I think in this next year is about building a better infrastructure in our facility. I think we finally have the facility that we've deserved as far as the size and what we have in it, and now we just need to further sharpen our tools as practitioners to become better. To me, that's really the ultimate goal. I want to have the best performance staff in the country from top to bottom. And that's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take countless hours of my coaches sharpening their sword on their own, but then me serving as a good kind of leader by example, and staying true to what really our pillars of our performance model is. And I think really what that comes down to is continuing what we've done, and that's we've made it an athlete-centered approach here, where it is about the athlete first and foremost, and everybody else, meaning the staff, is secondary to that. And we've got to make sure that we keep putting our athletes as priority and giving them exactly what they need, and exhausting ourselves as coaches, doing the right research and really paying attention to all the little warning signs that we see when an athlete's training and in preparation. So if we keep doing those things and stay consistent in how we do those methods, that's really what I'm looking forward to in the next year is how good my staff can become. That's
awesome. Yeah, I mean, obviously, talking about growing anything, you want to, stay strong in your base and in your foundation. So just invest in that.
And I think a lot of people, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think a lot of people get to a level of success or a level of notoriety, and they slack. They slack on their fundamentals. They slack on what really got them to the table. Right. And I see that with my pro athletes. I have a lot of pro athletes who work their butt off. They do all the right things, and then they get to the show, whether that's the NFL, the UFC, the NHL, they quit doing all those things that made them great because they started believing the clippings. They started, getting, maybe they got excited because they got a lot more followers on social media. I don't know what it is, but they lose sometimes the vision. And that's one thing we can't do, is we can never lose our vision. And within that, to me, the culture really sets the template for the vision. So if you have vision but you don't have culture, that's a problem. Definitely. If you have culture and a great vision, there's nothing you can't achieve.
Right. That's great. And I mean, and honestly, with that mindset and with you being the captain of the ship, it seems like you guys are being steered. You're steering your group in the right direction.
You know what? It's a daily checks and balances, right, of myself and my coaches. We all have to hold each other accountable, and there's days that if I'm not on my A game, I expect somebody here to put me in check, and if somebody here isn't on their A game, I'm going to let them know, hey, I don't know what's going on, but remember, this is athlete centered. Whatever you're dealing with, you can deal with it later once the athlete leaves.
Definitely. Very professional. That's awesome. Well, I'm going to be coming back. I'm looking forward to, getting in more consistently with you guys. I definitely see the benefit of what your facility has to offer. Where can the listeners, if they're in the Denver area, the Colorado area, where can they find you?
Sure. If they get to www.landowperformance.com, that is our running website, and you can get through there and scroll. You can click through all the different pages of the services we provide, the athletes we work with, and a little bit of our philosophy. You can get through there and kind of scroll through all of our coaches and see who kind of fits kind of your interest and your goals the best. On there we have our contact addresses as well and our phone numbers. So that is the best way for anybody to get a hold of us wherever they're at.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Loren. I was talking to Amber. I'm so glad we were able to get this done. I'm like, we gotta talk to Loren. We've been wanting to schedule this, but we definitely want to even come in and kind of get a visual. Get some great footage of even what you guys are doing in house. So we want to get that going as well.
Anytime. You know the person to contact to get that to happen, and we'll make that happen for you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Loren. It's been a pleasure. We can't wait to hang out some more later on.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me on.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, that was Loren Landow. Amazing, guys. So lucky to have him on the show. Great insight, right, into this new trainer's facility over in Las Vegas, Nevada. A lot of fighters have said there's been a lot of different thoughts about, oh man, I wish they would have just given me that money, which is true. And honestly, the fighters, okay, we've always talked about it. They need to get paid more, but I think that this is a great investment into the sport and into the fighters. Now, I think what would also help is if the UFC also provided vouchers for their athletes to be able to come and actually use the facility, because if they have to, most of the fighters in the UFC don't live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So the only way that they can take advantage of those facilities, separate from anything that they can do virtually, they have to be on the ground, right? And so if you have fighters who just can't afford to do that, that means that facility isn't doing anything for them. Okay, so I think that, again, the UFC's got to think about this whole thing from conception to implementation, how they're going to actually make it so that the fighters can take advantage of. And who knows? I don't know how much money they spent on this facility. It's 3 stories. I think the first 2 stories are office spaces, or I don't know. I'm making stuff up at this point, but it's big and it's really beautiful, and it looks like they're gonna, it looks like they have a lot to offer. Again, it can't just be for show though, because if it is, the fighters will let you know. They will let us know about it. And I hope that they do. I hope that they're honest. And if it's good, I want them to tell us that it's good. And if it's not that great, they need to express that as well. 2 truths and a lie. Last week, I had my first segment, 2 truths and a lie. I had a little bit of engagement. The winner last week is going to be going to Dean D. This guy has been so faithful to this channel. He responds to everything. is super engaged in the comments, which is awesome. If you guys want to win a Girl Fight Talk t-shirt, follow us on social media and give us a comment in the response for next week's competition, or, whatever they call it. So the two truths. The first one, I did get hit on by an old, a homeless guy about a month ago. Actually, I was on my way home from church. I went to go get some lunch. Went to Marquardt. Super delicious food, guys. If you've never been, go ahead and check them out. But on my way back, I had to go back to the church building to go pick up my parents and get them home. This guy was like, I need, everybody, has a little sign and whatnot. And I was like, oh, I've got some change. So I give him some change. I'm like, here you go, man. Here you go. And he's like, let me get my face right. He was like, thanks, baby. Stay sexy. And I was just so caught off guard because I was just trying to, my heart was in this cheerful giving place. And I was like, oh, yeah, awesome. And it was a lot of change too. So he could have gotten some, a meal probably after that. And, yeah, he rubbed my hand as he took it. I was like, oh my gosh. That was not the experience I was expecting to have. I think he got a bonus, from that exchange there. Okay, so that's true. The second one that was true, honestly, I kind of forgot what they were. The other one, I think the third one I said was that, okay. The second one was that, okay, I'll say the second truth. The second truth is, that I think Cyborg's supposed to be fighting in July, which honestly at this point, that might be a lie now because, MMA stuff changes. But that might be true. Sounds like someone's knocking at my door. And then the third one, which is a lie, is that, oh, it's not John. Okay, I thought you were knocking at the door. And then the third one, which is the lie, is that Conor McGregor's baby, Conor Jr., I asked you what his middle name was. And if you've paid attention, you would know that his middle name is not Anthony, but his middle name is Jack. His middle name is Conor Jack McGregor Jr. Okay, so if you guys got that right, I'll be able to check you out in the comments. Well, it's too late. Don't post in the comments now. Oh my gosh, I know the answer. No, it's too late now. Okay, so I don't have a two truth and a lie prepared for today, but we'll get another one going for our next show. Guys, I'm so grateful you guys came back, listened to the show. Looking forward to hitting it up with you guys again. Some fights coming up. We'll do a little review. But today, that's it for the show. Post any questions, any thoughts. Question of the day. Let's think. What is your dream fight for 2017? Right. This year has been pretty terrible so far. UFC 213 got destroyed. What's his name? Dillashaw and Cody Garbrandt are no longer fighting. Garbrandt is out with a back injury. And so, Dillashaw's been trying to get a fight with Demetrius Johnson. Demetrius Johnson doesn't want to fight Dillashaw, etc., etc. Which fight do you want to see that seems realistic, within the realm of possibilities? Which fight do you want to see in 2017? Post your thoughts and your predictions of what you want to see happen down in the comment section, and we'll talk about it next week. Okay, thanks guys. We'll see you next week. Peace.